Hello and welcome to this presentation titled No Stone Left Unturned, Archaeogaming Archives Audiences by me, Louise Bedford. So before I get started, I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. My name is Louise, and I'm an early career archaeologist interested in digital archaeology and heritage, especially anything to do with prehistory. I have just completed my BA Archaeology degree at the University of York, where I will also be starting my master's degree in September. I am incredibly passionate about sharing archaeology with wide audiences and love to post on my archaeology social media channels. So traditionally, archaeology has attracted an older demographic, but video games and social media provide an opportunity to communicate archaeology to new audiences. This project for my undergraduate dissertation aimed to create a game set at Avebury Henge inspired by the archive currently being digitised by the Avebury Papers project and to document the process on social media. Avebury itself is an optimal location for such a study. Avebury Henge is a Neolithic monument located in Wiltshire, England, and the site is of international significance due to its scale and exceptionality. Built and altered between 2850 and 2200 BCE, the site today includes a massive henge, which is a bank and ditch, with the world's largest stone circle and two smaller stone circles within it, and then the village of Avebury was later built inside the monument. The site attracts more than 250,000 visitors a year, but can be difficult to fully visualise when you're there in person due to its scale and complexity. The only major excavations undertaken at Avebury ended abruptly due to the outbreak of World War II, and consequently lots of materials have been under-analysed. The Avebury Papers project is a 4-year project to digitalise, explore and share the multimedia archive of Avebury's Neolithic origins and its subsequent life history. In addition to the various archaeological materials, the archive also includes creative works inspired by Avebury, which provide narratives that are equally as important as the stones to understanding Avebury today. And at the end of the project, the entire archive will be made available online and open access for anyone to use for research or creative purposes, like I did in this project. Creating a game explored the potential of incorporating these archival elements into a creative project, and while studies with archaeologists as the creative maker are rare, it is a valuable process. So archival research was the foundation for game development. An exploratory approach was used to examine the Avebury Papers archive and identify material to incorporate into the gameplay. Following the initial idea generation, the game design document process was used, which is sort of like a recipe for game development, as it provides a structured plan that can evolve throughout the production process. And the development of this game design document created a clear project scope. Create a cosy 2D top-down pixel art reconstruction of Avebury Henge during the 1938 to 39 excavations, including interactive elements such as signs, photographs, and artefact spots. And due to limited time, the game's final version focuses on being a playable prototype that can be later expanded with more gameplay mechanics. The game was designed within the cozy genre. This is a broad category of games designed to be relaxing, casual, and comforting, such as Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing. And the demographic of players is believed to be quite wide-ranging, but thought to skew towards women in their 20s and 30s. And this is a demographic underrepresented in heritage and archaeology, making this genre an appropriate choice, and developing a cozy game could potentially introduce archaeology to new audiences. The game was mainly developed using two tools, GDevelop and Aseprite. GDevelop is a game engine, which is a type of software used to construct games, and this particular one was chosen because it is no code and open source, making it quite an accessible option. Aseprite is a specialized pixel art drawing software used to create the game's assets, that's basically anything visual you see. The first development stage was creating the game world, which is a recognisable pixel art reconstruction of Avebury Henge from a top-down perspective. This was achieved using maps, photographs, and Google Earth to develop a recognisable plan that captured the character of Avebury. A scaling system was also designed to ensure consistency. This translated to 16 pixels, equaling roughly 1 meter in real life for key objects such as buildings, stones, and characters, and then 16 pixels equaling 2 to 5 meters for landscape elements, which allowed for necessary compression of the site for playability while maintaining recognizability. Once the game map was complete, interactive elements were added. These include information signs, artifact spots, photographs, and drawings. The ideas for these were derived from the original archival research and were essential to fulfilling the aim of creating a game inspired by the Avebury Papers archive. Alongside game development, documenting the process on social media was a key part of this project, with aims of attracting new audiences, generating engagement, and providing a reflective space for assessing the development progress. This methodology incorporates principles of open archaeology, which aims to make archaeological research accessible to the public. The open research principles of this research were actually formally recognised and awarded the University of York's Open Research Award in 2025. And in total, 33 videos were created and shared across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So the game's premise is as follows. In 1938, the player arrives at Avebury without knowing how long they will stay. They're drawn to the archaeological excavations led by the marmalade magnate Alexander Keeler, and they are determined to uncover Avebury's secrets, leaving no stone unturned. They play as the real archaeological illustrator, Dennis Grant King, and have a cozy archaeological adventure as they explore this prehistoric world through items from the Avebury Papers archive. The game begins with an introduction sequence setting the scene for gameplay, which then leads into dialogue with Keeler greeting the player on their arrival at Avebury. He then challenges the player to collect resources he has scattered across the site to prove they are worthy of employment on his excavations. The player can collect a total of 57 items, including artifacts, signs, drawings, notes, and photographs. And once the player has collected all the items, they can return to Keeler, who then hires them to work on the excavation. Creating a game world that was recognisably Avebury was essential, and to create this world, a variety of archival and contemporary sources were used. However, like most archaeological interpretations, the game world of No Stone Left Unturned is subjective and open to critique. The medium of pixel video game with a top-down perspective provides an alternative representation and experience of Avebury, which has been found to be beneficial because in person it can be really hard to visualise. And while recognisable, this reconstruction of Avebury is definitely not photorealistic, but can be viewed as immersive and contextually engaging, rather than being strictly accurate. The most time-consuming part of building the world was creating all 42 stones individually, with some taking up to an hour to complete, and this level of detail may be where my approach as an archaeologist with no experience creating a game differed from that as a game designer, as they might not have deemed this necessary. However, I do think it was an essential choice that added to the depth and immersion of the world. The process of developing a game provided me with a framework to explore Avebury Henge and its archive. This allowed me to engage with the site in a way I had never done before, and ultimately change my view of it. For example, I had viewed the stones of Avebury as a collective. However, the time-consuming process of recreating each stone for the game world made me think about them a lot more as individually. And this change in perspective made me consider how Avebury could have developed over time. The monument was not built in a single event, but instead was modified over centuries. It likely would have taken hundreds of years just to erect the stones, and some estimates suggest there were originally over 700 stones making up the monuments in the Avebury landscape. Each stone is also completely unique. And I think this raises interesting questions of why specific stones were selected and erected. Do their shapes and locations hold special significance? It has been previously suggested that Avebury's broader and narrower stones have been said to represent female and male forms. And in studies of Upper Paleolithic cave art, pareidolia, which is the psychological phenomenon of seeing familiar shapes in random objects, like this picture showing here, has been proposed as a reason for this artwork, and could we potentially make similar arguments for the selection of stones in Neolithic monuments? And I think a game looking at the development of Avebury could be a really interesting way to explore these questions further. The incorporation of archival materials into gameplay was really successful, with the archive lending itself really well to gameplay incorporation. The interactive elements in the game are mostly all directly from the archive, and the following examples have been selected just to illustrate how effective this was. Dennis Grant King was an archaeological illustrator and avid diarist who documented the 1938 to 39 excavations at Avebury. His diary entries and drawings that are housed in the archive heavily influenced the game's narrative and design, so much so that he was chosen to be the player character. For example, the game's premise and introductory text sequence are inspired by the real introduction to King's diary. This personal experience captured of him experiencing and working at Avebury makes it an ideal narrative basis for a game. He also states he was determined to leave no stone unturned, which inspired the name of the game, No Stone Left Unturned. Furthermore, in the game, King wears a yellow shirt, and even this is derived from archival inspiration. In one diary entry, King details how he wore a yellow shirt one day, which apparently caused a lot of amusement at the site, with Alexander Keeley even taking a colour photograph, and King later jokes because it would be an archaeological exhibit, and this is referenced in the game. King also illustrated this amazing cartoon of the excavation at the southeast quadrant of Avebury in 1939, and the top-down style in this piece is the same as the game's design, and there's lots of humorous little elements that can be added into gameplay, and I just love this piece. And while King provided a lot of inspiration, his role as the player is unfortunately problematic. His diary includes several outdated beliefs, including anti-Semitism, phrenological analysis of acquaintances, and use of various xenophobic slurs and generalizations, all of which were omitted from gameplay. King is also a white man in the 1930s, meaning his experience of Avebury will be very different to that of a lot of society today. And his role as the player may encourage stereotypes of archaeology, as archaeologists in popular culture have traditionally been portrayed as elite white men. And upon reflection, I believe a better choice will be to implement character customization so the player can choose who they are in the game, and then players can recognise themselves and identify more with the archaeology, and this wouldn't impact gameplay and solve the issues stated. Nevertheless, this project highlights the potential of archives for creative-based projects as they offer fascinating resources and narratives that can be explored. Between June 2024 and March 2025, 33 videos were created and shared across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube showcasing the project. And in total, these amassed over 145,000 views, 5,800 likes, and 270 comments. Unfortunately, there are limited case studies published that evaluate the application and impact of digital outreach strategies by projects, which does make it sort of difficult to benchmark these results to fully comment on the success. However, when compared to one case study, I did note my project received an average of 213 more views per YouTube video in a 3 times shorter period. And the demographic data of this project also revealed something different than found in other projects. And the demographic data revealed a predominantly female audience, aged 18 to 34, which is the demographic underrepresented in heritage but engaged with gaming, suggesting I did achieve my goal of attracting new audiences. And I do think these metrics do show success in what was quite a short and niche campaign. However, I do think more research needs to be done in this sort of area. And then the main limitation this project faced was time. Balancing content creation and game development resulted in a really large workload while completing my end of my undergrad degree. And this project did utilise 3 platforms. It could have been more beneficial just to focus on one because of the nuances between them. And finding success on social media can be pretty difficult. Just to conclude, this research demonstrates how archaeology and archives can be explored through creative projects and how video games and social media has the potential to communicate archaeology to new audiences. I have lots of ideas to add to the game, so there's definitely more to come, and I plan to continue building on my research by conducting some user reviews in the future. So if you're interested in following along, please do follow me online. And thank you so much for listening.